All right. It's like we got our first viewer tonight. That's great. Yeah, trying to give everybody else a second here to get on. Uh, hey, Lane, thanks for joining. For anybody coming on, if they don't already know, Lane Ashby, his kindred, the American Crow kindred, is our newest kindred. So I'm very excited to welcome American Crow as a AFA kindred. Anybody in Central Florida, you guys may want to look them up. Lane's got a great start down there. They're doing nice events. Yeah, it's a place we've always had a lot of interest. It's a place we do have a lot of members, and it's really nice to see them starting to do stuff down there. And first official AFA kindred in Florida, to my knowledge. So well done and congratulations, Lane. Good to see you all. Wanted to take just a second to talk about what a great time I had at Thor Fest in Colorado last weekend. Those of you may not know, this is the second Thor Fest that folk builder Jason Plurd has put on in Colorado in January, and it's always a lot of fun. It was a really nice event this year. It's always had a really intimate, close atmosphere. He's done it at kind of rustic camps, and it gives guys and gals a chance to, I don't know, kind of bond over that camping experience a little bit. It was really great this year. We had some amazing talks. Thanks to everybody who called in and did video conference talks. We had Githya Anna Funk, and we also had Gothi Brian Wilton calling in. So that was really nice. I know those helped a lot of the people in attendance. And Brian, if you're listening, there was one gentleman who that was his first event he'd been to, and your talk meant the world to him. So well done. That was awesome. And we also had Philip from Mimmersbrunner calling in and doing a conference chat with us all the way from England. So that was really a nice thing. It was really a special treat for everybody there. It was a fun time. We had one of our members who's a chef there. He always made sure we ate really good. Appreciate all his hard work on that. It's great to make some new friends and see some old ones that I hadn't seen in a while. If you guys, mark your calendars now. If you're looking for something to do in January of next year, there's going to be Thor Fest 3 in Colorado, and I would love to see you guys there. It was a 16-and-a-half-hour drive for me, and it was well worth every mile of it. I had a great weekend, and like I said, Jason does a really good event. Hoff's in space. Dave, that's absolutely going to happen. I don't know in space per se, but on other planets, I'm sure maybe little like chapel Hoffs on space stations or starships at some point. But before we get there, we're going to have a number of more Hoffs here in Midgard, here on Earth. And I'm excited to see that move forward as we get there. I think I missed a question, but looks like somebody jumped in and got to it. Anybody who listens to this, enjoys what we have to say, enjoys what we're about, you can always join the Asatru Folk Assembly at www.runestone.org. It's got our core documents. It's got contact information for kindreds, for folk builders, for your local Gothar, and also a join button. So if it's something that you're into, if you like what we're doing, if you share our faith in the gods and our core values, then absolutely everybody who sees us, I'd invite you to go and submit an application. All right. Well, we've got a lot of folks joining now. This is fantastic. I hope this time worked out good for you guys. I'm trying to, when able, schedule these on the 1st, so it kind of rotates throughout the week, maybe depending on people's work schedules or their time zones. This will hit folks at times to folks that want to get on can get on. I look forward to this every month. This is really fun for me. It's awesome to get to talk to you guys and chat. Hope y'all enjoy it. And as always, bring any questions you guys have or anything you guys want to talk about, and I would love to have those conversations. Before I get to that portion, I want to mention coming up this next weekend. I know it's not a lot of time for you guys to move on it, but if anybody out here is in the Pacific Northwest or has a wild hair and thinks they want to travel to the Pacific Northwest next weekend, contact Joe Rosenik. He's the folk builder for the region. They're having their Charming of the Plow, and it's going to be a really cool event. I'm excited for it. I'm going to drive up, and I look forward to seeing you guys there. I heard they have a great time up there. I heard this is kind of their big event of the year, and I want to go up support them and get a chance to hang out with our Northwest family. I don't get enough opportunity to do that. And if you guys can, next month. Yes, Dave, this is absolutely Q&A. I'm just doing a little preamble about some events coming up first. Ostara in the South in March. It's going to be a great event. Put a lot into planning it this year. We've got a whole lot of folks showing up. I'll be out there. A number of other members of AFA leadership will be there. Steve and Sheila McNallen will be there, and they'd love to meet you guys. So if you can at all make it to North Carolina in March for Ostara in the South, it's going to be a great time. It's well worth the travel. It's well worth any effort to go to. It's going to be a really good event, and I hope to see you guys there. Matthias. California Midsummer, I believe, is over the 13th this year, but we do have that up on the AFA Facebook site where this is being broadcast from. Just click on the little link, and it's in our upcoming events, and it will give you all the details you need on that. This Midsummer is going to be a big deal. This is our official celebration of 25 years of the Asatru Folk Assembly. It's a really special time, and I hope as many people can join us at Odinsoft for that. Dave, if you would please break down to us what you mean by the cosmological argument. Roan, it is going to be awesome. It's going to be an amazing, amazing time. Yeah, if you can make it, come on out to California, coming out to Brownsville, and it's a fantastic event. It's going to be really good. I know folks out here put a lot of effort into making that nice every year. Githya Anna Funk is going to be a special guest at Ostara in the South. Looks like. I think that'll be great to get folks in the southeast part of the country to meet her and for her to meet them. If you haven't met her yet, she's a fantastic woman, an amazing Githya, and it's a real treat that she's going to go all the way and see you guys there. I think we have a good contingent from the Northern Plains region coming all the way down to support that event and really make it shine. Side note, I know that our Gothar coordinator, Blaine Qualls, he's really done a lot behind the scenes to make sure Ostara in the South is happening this year and that it's happening at a capacity better than it has in a long time. He's put a lot of effort into that, and I have no doubt that's going to pay off really big for all of us. Well, Dave, I thought that might be where you were going. It's one of those, certainly not a bad question, but it's one of those endless navel-gazing questions that I don't think anyone can ever truly know all of the answer to. What came before the gap? So, Ganunga Gap was there. What was before the gap? Whatever answer I would give you, well, cool, what came before that? What came before that? what came before that. I think with the limits of human consciousness, there's only so far we can go back. I think that the more important question is, where did our people come from? What's the source of our folk soul? What's the source of our existence? And I think we have a clear answer to that in the gods of Aryan man, in Odin, Vili, and Ve constructing us and taking something that existed and making it us. I think that's the most important point. But I think going back a step further to our gods emerging from that potent magical void and shaping that chaos into the order that we have and the order that is our consciousness and the order that is our world, I think that's the essential point. I think we can presuppose, well, who or what put the gap into motion? Well, who or what put those people into motion? Well, where did they come from? And like I said, it's a fascinating thing to ponder. And the more we, deal with quantum mechanics and really advanced scientific theory, the more interesting it becomes. But I think that the more important thing for us to focus on is, where did we come from? Where did our gods come from? And what that means to how we function in the world around us and how we interact with the divine. Blaine is a great guy. Well, thanks, Daniel. I know it's not a real complete answer, but I hope it touches on at least where we're coming from in that sort of an argument. Hey, Melissa, glad you joined us. Excellent. I'm glad we got a bunch of Florida guys coming up for Ostara. Ostara has been a little bit light on folks from the deep south, from Florida and Georgia. I'm hoping Florida and Georgia make a really big splash at Ostara this year. Got any more questions or any things you guys want to bring up and talk about at this juncture? Well, we have a little lull in the conversation here. There's something that I wanted to talk to you guys about that's been on my mind a little bit lately, with some arguments I see folks having or some discussions out there. I'm trying to think of the best way to break into the topic, but fundamentally, religion is not about belief, and it's not about study. It's about practice. It's about what belief and or study leads you to do with that information or to do with that belief. I think we get caught up a lot in theory, and I think that what's much more important is intention and practice and building relationships with the divine. I've thought about this a lot. I think a lot of us came into Asatru and we heard that old line that Asatru is the religion with homework. No, it's not. Any religion that you devoutly believe in is a religion of homework. Any religion that you genuinely believe is true and valuable, everybody should go out and try to learn about it, as you should do with anything you care about. But there's no point in time that the majority of Asatru were, some sort of scholars on it or theologians or pondered over ancient tomes. For the vast amount of history, people who practiced Asatru were sincere, regular folk that revered their gods, that looked to them for inspiration, that came to them in time of trouble, that not only believed in them, but that called out to them and tried to build relationships. And that's the fundamentals of Asatru, is building a relationship with the divine. And when I say that, I don't mean that, each of our gods are your personal Lord and Savior, that they always personally care about all of the goings on in your life. But I do mean that us as a community, as a church, we come together in a group and we interact with the divine. The very nature of all of our ritual is about building a relationship. It's about a communion. It's about an exchange of energies between us and them. And I think that's really, really fundamental. A lot of the time, people get lost in pondering how Asatru should look or how it would look or what the perfect way to practice is or the perfect way to structure a ritual function or some obscure bit of lore that maybe our ancestors, moved left or moved right. But I think it's not a science project It's an issue of relationships and of building. I often thought of this analogy, and I don't think that it's a perfect one, but it is one that comes to mind. Um, who has the better relationship? A man who's been, married to a woman for 6 months, or a guy that's been stalking her for 10 years and never interacted with her? Sure, he knows what she orders at Starbucks and he knows where she parks her car, but at the end of the day, he's never spoken to her. He has no troth, he has no relationship with her. I think it's much more important, rather than, being stalkers or being scholars of the gods, that we be in a troth relationship with them, that we build a connection between us and divinity. Asatru doesn't mean believing in the gods. It means troth to, it means loyalty to the gods. And that's an issue of relationship. And we see that in all that we do with that exchange. So everybody out there that, is studying and spends more time reading than they do practicing, or more time, pondering than they do participating, I'd urge you to reshift that balance, come out and practice, build that relationship. And I think that people will find that over time, if you build that relationship and you're out there doing Asatru, that it sheds a lot more light on the things that you read and the things that you study. Well, Mary, I think that what you ask kind of touches on another long trotted out thing about Asatru that I think is misleading. Asatru isn't a nature religion, not in the sense that we worship nature. We don't. We learn from nature. We use nature as a great guide, and very often our rituals conform to cycles of nature. But our faith has always been about gods of consciousness that dominate nature, that take nature and shape it towards their will, that build civilization, that build that carve out what we have from that undifferentiated, from that chaotic nature. So I think you do just like our ancestors did when they found themselves in a new place. I don't think that your connection with the gods is based on pine trees and, foreboding German swamps. I think our relationships with the gods are in our blood, or in our heart and in our soul, and I think that you can connect with them no matter where you are. I think that the biggest thing you need to do, instead of equating them with natural phenomenon around you, is equating them with the consciousness within you and the consciousness within our folk, and reaching out to them that way. Looking up into the ether and calling out to them as individuals and not as some sort of nature forces, because our gods are that. And the ways that they interact with nature help us to better understand them. But our gods shaped nature. They're not shaped by nature, if that makes sense. Ron, I think that's something interesting that you're picking up on, um, and I don't think that's um, just a function of the Norse gods. Honestly, all of the gods that spring from uh, Aryan religion all have those layers. I think that when you see the simplicity or the depth as far as their cults are concerned, it gives you a snapshot of those people and how those people were able to relate to them and the circumstances in which they related to them. But I think it's really important that to realize that our gods are multifaceted. Frey is not just a god of agriculture or of fertility. In Sweden and Denmark, Frey was a god of kings and abundance that way. He was a god of shipping and transport and joy and merriment and so many other things. You see that with a lot of our gods. You see that with Odin and all of his many by names. He wasn't just a god of kings or just a god of magic or just a god of the berserker. He was a god of very many things. And I think all of our gods have those layers. And to delve into that is part of what I meant by that relationship building. getting to know and building a relationship with our gods instead of just using them as symbols or literary devices. No, these are the forces that shaped our consciousness. These are the great gods of our folk. Trying to build that relationship, I think, is a real key. Thanks, Dave. Exactly, Mary. That's exactly my point. Our gods have you know, propelled us to conquer the nature that's threatening and to use the nature that's beneficial in a good and responsible way. And they're the same gods that do project us to the stars and beyond, that have always fueled our folk to go over that next horizon, to move west and to spread, to be bountiful, to be successful, and to push those boundaries and do new things, to glean the cube. So absolutely. Thoughts on reincarnation? We've hit this a lot, and I've got a couple things to say on it. But first, hydration, lest I need reincarnation. So there are parts of us that absolutely reincarnate in a fashion, but I think the simplistic, oh, here I am, last time around I was this guy, at one point in time I was King Tut. I think that sort of very simplistic reincarnation isn't always the case. I don't think that's even mostly the case. When we look at the heroes in our sagas and in our history, we see the idea of ascension. And I think we see that in most Aryan pantheons, some idea of breaking free of that. We see, our ancestors talking about going to Valhalla, the other halls of the gods. We see the Greeks talking about going to Elysium. We see the Vedics talk about breaking this samsaric cycle of life and freeing themselves from that cycle to move on to something better. And I think that's really important. I think that there are certainly elements. As you guys know, our soul is a complex. It's a many-faceted thing, and there's certainly elements of yourself that do reincarnate, that go into our family line, that get passed down. I think a lot of that has to do with luck and ancestral memory. Those things absolutely come back in. That's an important part of when we pass on names of our kin to our children. We pass on a piece of their luck and a piece of who they are. But I don't think we pass them on whole cloth to that next generation. I think pieces of us go to the mound. I think, if we completely reincarnated, we wouldn't have concepts like the Disir and like our ancestors that look on from the mound, or, the Disir that look on after their family line long after they're gone. I don't think you have the heroes, the Einherjar, that go and feast with the gods and train with them to have spiritual battles in other realms. I don't think that would happen if there's that complete flipping of personality in the typical sense of reincarnation. But I think there absolutely is an element to it. I think it's a fine science that our ancestors certainly understood better than we do. But there's many parts to our soul complex. And shortly, I think some of them get reincarnated and passed on. I think some of them recycle generally. And I think some of them have the potential to ascend. And a large part of our personality, if we achieve glory, if we are, achieve that heroic stature, I think that can pass whole into the next world. And I think that was the hope of the heroes and the great people of our ancestors, and even down to this time. Absolutely, Mary. Folks, our ancestors out here in Nevada and in the desert certainly did have to push boundaries and bend nature to their will and carve something out out of a very barren and inhospitable place. I think it's absolutely a testament to our folk that we were able to do that and do that as well as we were able to. Daniel, it's interesting you bring up the idea of kneeling during prayer versus standing. This whole macho, we don't kneel before our gods. Why not? I think it's unaccustomed to what most of us are used to, is taking a knee. But the idea of assuming a reverent position towards deities that are absolutely greater than us, that are absolutely our betters. The same folks that like to push the idea that we don't kneel before our gods are the same ones that share that little meme about equality being a false god. If you think that you are too good, or it's somehow beneath you to take a knee before the gods of our consciousness and the gods of our folk, the gods that shaped our reality, if you are that full of your own ego, a lot of work needs to be done on your end. I would have no problem kneeling before our gods. That's not typically our custom, but certainly, I've always made a point when I'm addressing the divine to remove my hat, to put our arms out in the Elhaz position, to take a stance that shows that we're worshiping gods. If you would salute a superior officer, if you would stand up in court when judge comes out and they say, all rise, if you would do any of those physical acts of acknowledging your betters here on earth, what would possess you not to be willing to do those things to our great gods? I would certainly do those things to my grandparents or my great-grandparents. What would go on in my head that I would find it beneath me or inappropriate to show that same deference to the divine? And I think that's something a lot of our folks just don't think about. I think some of these things have been bandied about so much and for so long that we repeat them without really giving them much thought. And I'm glad you bring it up and ask that question, Daniel. Katrina, that's a really good question. I don't know all the questions. I know I'm missing questions on my end because I'm seeing responses to questions that I'm not seeing. If anybody doesn't see Katrina's question, she said that they recently had a loved one pass and wanted to know if there's something special they can do as a bloat to honor them. Absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier, you could go ad nauseum trying to figure out the exact proper technique to honor the dead, but in the most fundamental way, reaching out and doing something is absolutely what you should do. I think that you could perform a bloat to your dead ancestor just like you would to the gods. Very often that's what we do during a deseer bloat, is do a bloat honoring our deseer. So you could do, basically the same process you would for a regular bloat, but just to one who's passed. I think an important element in doing that would be to get some artifacts of that person so that everybody there really connects with them. Some things that bring you close to them, perhaps music that was important to them that they liked or that you enjoyed with them in life. I think that those things are important. One thing I think whenever you do any ritual, the more you can engage your five senses, the better it is. The more you can have a sound element, something that brings everybody in that way, a smell, incense. I don't know this person, but perhaps cologne or perfume, respectively, that you associate with them. Or even if there's a dish that they like and you can smell that, I don't know, a pie or something, that smell really brings you back. I notice, and this is whatever, but I notice if I go into a place that's been smoking, and very seldom you find a room that people smoke in anymore, but if you choose the smoking room at a hotel or whatever, that smell reminds me so much of my grandparents' house and of my grandfather that it really takes me back. Something like that brings people into that. And, maybe instead of mead, you share a beverage that was important to them. Maybe if they were a whiskey drinker, you you toast them with whiskey, maybe something like that. But I think that shaping it towards the person that's passed and making that effort is really important. And certainly, those who've passed look on from beyond and hear when we reach out to them in that kind of a ritual context. It was always very important. I say always. It was certainly very important to our ancestors to keep both familial altars in their house to those that have passed, but also to go and sit on mounds and be next to the remains of their loved one and reach out to them that way for guidance, for to honor them, for various things from beyond the grave. So I would absolutely encourage you to do those things. And any of our Gothar would be very happy to help you shape something if you'd like any help on it. Absolutely, Roan. Dave, I think that's really important. I think that our gods are all of the above. I think it's very easy to try to a couple of thoughts on how we conceive our gods. And I hope this gets to your question. Just off the bat, no, our gods are not just symbols. Yes, our gods are absolutely real beings with personality and existence. It would be silly for us to try to build a relationship with symbols. It's very important that we build a relationship with actual deities that exist, just to get that out of the way. But on a deeper note, how we conceive of our gods is really, really interesting. Our ancestors, when you read the stories of our gods, they drew them like big people. And that may seem primitive or it may seem not good enough. But in a way, empathy is the closest way we have to relating to any other being. Empathy is how we relate to animals, it's how we relate to children, it's how we relate to each other. And it's a very honest way to try to relate to the divine. Now, can we fully, as humans here in this existence on Midgard, can we ever fully know the depth and breadth of all of our gods? Absolutely not. Hopefully, as we grow in Asatru, we come closer to a more perfect understanding of them. But while no part of me believes that Thor's, some big buff, red-bearded dude that rides a goat chariot, that image helps us all have a better picture of what Thor is. It helps us understand who he is better. And we understand that through images that we're comfortable with that draw back something in our minds. And the stories of the gods tell us about their personality and about the core things that make them tick. But through long, years of making offerings and building a relationship, we come to know them on a deeper level that transcends words and often can't be expressed that way. I've often said that our gods speak from without to us, but they also speak from within. And just because they do both doesn't mean that they're merely archetypical. They certainly represent archetypes, but that's because they're the building blocks that shaped who we are. In a way, our fathers and our mothers are archetypes that we gauge ourselves by, or in a negative sense, that we gauge ourselves against. But either way, our fathers and our mothers are the exemplars that we use to gauge right, to gauge wrong, to gauge the men and women that we want to become, either because of them or in spite of them. And the gods do that on just such a greater scale. But I hope that addresses what you're asking, Dave. But like I said, I think that empathy and that trying to put forth how do our gods think, maybe we'll never know that. But at the very least, we can accredit them to how would the noblest amongst us think, and at least afford them that amount of credit. And then their grace and nobility and grandeur expands leagues beyond that. But that's at the very least we can give them. Malika, that's a good question. First, and this is kind of a big topic, other Aryan gods. Certainly, when you mention specifically Celtic and Slavic deities, there's a great amount of crossover, and there's a great amount of those deities tracing back to the same source and the same root deity. Yes, we have AFA members that are particularly ethnically Slavic or ethnically Celtic, and we do have those folks that that will call out those names for the divine, and that's how they will interact with the divine in their homes, and that's perfectly fine. And the Asatru Folk Assembly as a whole, so that we have a unity amongst each other when the AFA does something. Yes, we call the deities by their Germanic or their Norse names because that's less confusing. But we do have folks at home that relate to the divine, you know, in their Slavic or their Celtic guise. Yes, yes, yes. Anybody here who has children that would like them to be involved, this is today we started the second month of the AFA Youth Program. Brandy Callahan, our newest folk builder, and Jessica Lambert, folk builder in the Midwest, have really taken that on and shaped that into a really beautiful thing. It's growing and getting better every month. We're so excited to have that. The children are absolutely, literally and figuratively our future. We've talked in the AFA for 2 years now about the idea of building immortality. That is the immortality of the Asatru Folk Assembly, is building our church and our folk in a way that this will be around for our children, for their children's children. When we talk about what our ancestors did, hopefully 1,000 years from now, we'll have folks talking about what we're doing right now. And that's the goal of the Asatru Folk Assembly. And the way to do that is to help build this faith and build this within our children, because they're going to carry that torch into the future. So if you got kids that want to be a part of that, please contact Brandy and Jessica at youth@runestone.org. And we would love to see them be involved. Oh, I should also say, if you want to participate in helping that program, or you have ideas for that program, also reach out at youth@runestone.org. We'd appreciate input and ideas. We want this to be the very best it can be, and the way we do that is by all of us contributing and doing what we can to make it successful. Got any more questions or things folks would like to talk about this evening? Not sure if I'm missing some stuff. I know I do. I kind of say this every time, but I do mean it. If you guys have asked a question and it hasn't come through on my end, I will absolutely go back through these questions and answer them over the next couple of days. So yeah, I apologize. Something doesn't always work on Facebook to where I get to see all of them, but I do tend to over the next couple of days when I go back after this post is no longer live. A lot of them end up showing up. Not sure if we have any of our Scandinavian members on tonight, but had a great call with our Scandinavian members yesterday. It was fantastic talking to those guys. Any of you that might not know, we have 3 kindreds in Sweden, and we have 1 kindred that's forming at present in Norway. We've got a really good group of people in Scandinavia that are a really strong part of our AFA family. Anders, our folk builder over there, is doing an amazing job. He's got fantastic people that I had the pleasure of meeting last May. So yeah, we got good things going over there. So some of you may have noticed, one thing I'm trying to do this year is get everybody up to speed on their AFA history. We talk a lot about history. So much of Asatru is rooted in history and an appreciation of you know, very ancient, old history. But I think that all too often, too many of us don't know about our recent history. They don't know about the history of the Asatru Folk Assembly. They don't know about, all of the great things that Steve and Sheila McNallen put in to bring us to where we are today. So I've been trying to post, old things out of the runestone that I find interesting. I'm always looking for different little stuff to post. I hope you guys appreciate those. I hope they're interesting. If you see them and you want more, I've put all of the back issues that we have of the runestone and of the voice on our archive section, our library section at www.runestone.org. You guys can go download those and check them out if you want to. But yeah, those are there. I hope folks like them. I sure enjoy doing them. It's good typing practice for me, and it's just neat to look back and reflect on where we were and where we are and how far we've come and the great things that brought us to where we're at. There's so many people over the years and so much effort that's been put in the Asatru Folk Assembly to bring us to where we are today. I talk all the time about there being no AFA genie out west that magically manifests all these things that we want. It's the blood, sweat, and tears of members and of volunteers that put themselves out there and try new things, have new ideas, open up their homes, put on events, host things, see something that needs fixing, and volunteer to fix it. So we appreciate all those people over the last quarter of a century that have done that and have brought us to where we're at, often at great cost to themselves, not just financially, but time with their families. Just heartache of going out and trying and swinging and missing until one of the times you end up hitting. And that's what it's taken to build what we have. We're very lucky and very thankful that folks put themselves out there. Next 25 years, what do they look like? They look glorious, Daniel. They look fantastic. Next 25 years are not going to be without struggle. They're not going to be without difficulty, but we've got a really great momentum going into those 25 years. Over the next 25 years, we're going to have HOFs across the United States. What else we're going to have over the next 25 years? We're going to have international AFA HOFs. That's coming, and I think it's coming much quicker than that next quarter century. It's interesting. I was going through, and we have Asatru Folk Assembly members in 16 countries at present. We have got 6 international kindreds at present, and I know of at least 2 more international kindreds in the making right now. So I think the AFA will be much less of just an American thing within those next 25 years. I think it'll expand to the corners of the globe where we have all of our folk. And I definitely think we're going to see HOFs. We're going to see much more Gothar. Our Gothar are going to end up being more structured. The other thing that we're going to see happen is a further evolution from a club to the church that we ought to be honoring our gods. We already see that. We see that momentum picking up. One of the big parts of that has been folks contributing to the Hoftoller, as opposed to membership dues and having your folk builder hassle you for $10 a month. What's happened over this last year is a lot of our members have chosen to contribute to the Hoftoller, and that's a percentage-based giving that supports the Asatru Folk Assembly. And that's how any functional religion in this world works, is they give a percentage of what they have. So when they're having good times, their religious community, their church benefits. When they have hard times, they do what they can. They keep that commitment at the same percentage, but we all share that burden. And that's a really special thing. And in the short time we've had folks paying Hoftoller, it's made a tremendous difference behind the scenes on what we're able to accomplish, how we're able to help our folk, and how we're able to move forward with Hof projects that we're working on. So I think we're going to see a lot more streamlined. The other thing we're going to see, Daniel, is we're going to see a lot more piety. We're going to see a lot more piety, and we're going to see a lot less infighting over petty silliness. It's been really nice to watch how Asatru is growing up. We're moving beyond a lot of the pettiness that was there in the beginning, and any new thing. When you start out, have a lot of folks that, end up being on the fringe. There ends up being infighting and silliness as everybody finds their way. One thing I've already noticed is we're growing up beyond that. So in the next 25 years, we're going to have a lot more serious people taking this seriously. We're going to see the children that we have now in the AFA youth program become adults, and in the next 25 years, not only become adults, but have children of their own. So we're going to see the AFA families blossom into generational Asatru Folk Assembly members. And I think that's a really, really special thing. So I think that's what our next 25 years is going to look like. I think it's already such a nice thing in the United States when you travel. You're never but a few hours away from members of your AFA family that would love to share a meal with you and spend time with you. You have that already, but I think that's going to be much better. I think we're going to have AFA members in every town you're going to be in, or every county. And that'll be really nice. I think in 25 years, we'll have, instead of regional folk builders, we'll have state folk builders. And we may even have more than that in big urban areas. I think rather than spreading our Gothar out across the world, we'll have Gothar in every state at that point. I think in 25 years, the average white American, and hopefully the average son or daughter of Europe around the world, will know that Asatru is a real religion, that we are real people doing real things, and they'll come out and join us and be part of our family and take part in worshiping our gods and being part of that relationship that we've built for 25 years. I'm looking really forward to AFA's golden 50th anniversary as we sit here and celebrate our silver anniversary. Malenka, I think that's a really good idea, and I know that a number of people have asked for audiobooks. Anybody hears the sound of my voice, remember to ask me about that. It's something I would like to look into and see about making happen. I think audiobooks would be a really nice thing for a number of reasons. People that want to listen in their car, people that want to listen at the gym, whatever, but also folks that have disabilities and can't just pick up a page and read like the rest of us. I think audiobooks are a nice thing, and we should absolutely work on getting those happening. Malika, reach out to me privately if you have any suggestions on stuff you particularly want to read, and we can see if that's feasible, and if it is, on how to go about getting us there, because I would like to do that. Hey, Blaine, you missed when we were talking about how great you were earlier, but Blaine Qualls, ladies and gentlemen, he's joining us, and he is a fantastic gentleman, and he is doing way more than you guys realize behind the scenes to make the Asatru Folk Assembly a success and to do some really big things coming up in the next couple of months. Look, Blaine, look at your eruption. All right. I don't know if you guys see all the little hearts and thumbs up and stuff that I see on my end, but it's always cool to see when that happens. So, got anything else we want to talk about tonight? Any questions? Any things you guys want to know about, or things you want my take on, or I don't know, anything you think bears mentioning this evening? Well, cool. While we're celebrating Blaine here, not only is Blaine a fantastic Gothi and a good friend of mine, but he is our Gothar coordinator. He does all the work on building our Gothar program and training up our Gothis and Githya so that we have what I was just talking about what's going to happen in the next 25 years of the Asatru Folk Assembly. For any faith to be successful, they need a very strong clergy, and Blaine is putting in the effort to make that happen. It's not for anybody. Not just everybody makes it through our Gothar training. In fact, quite a few people don't. So it really is the cream of the crop that make it through. If you have an interest and if you've been around for a little while and you want to see about becoming a Gothi, Blaine is the man to talk to. We have an application on our website, www.runestone.org. It's got kind of a reading list and some prerequisites that we expect folks to have before they are accepted into the Gothar program. And accepted or not, we appreciate you guys applying, and Blaine can put you on a course to get you there eventually if that's where you want to head, and if that's where we see you heading. So it's worth contacting him, and it's space available. It's run through a mentorship situation. So if we have the Gothar available to provide that mentorship, then we'll take those students. If we don't have enough to provide them, then maybe next time around. But like I said, Blaine can get you on that course. I did not realize it was Anna's birthday. Anna, happy birthday. We talked about how awesome you were a little bit earlier, but yeah, hope that you had an amazing birthday, and I look forward to seeing you at Ostara. Everybody say happy birthday to Anna. All right, guys. Well, anything else you'd like us to touch on? Trying to get all the questions out. Like I say, ask me anything you want. One thing I think sometimes people are hesitant to ask questions sometimes, or they think they'd be rude or that they'd be silly or whatever. I encourage you guys to ask whatever you want. Being transparent is really important to me, and not being distant, being somebody, and the AFA being a church that's accessible to our members is really important to me. If folks have questions and want their voices heard, I want you guys to know that I'm here to listen, and that the other members of AFA leadership are always here to listen. And if a format like this is weird to ask questions, please know you guys can reach out privately. Email addresses for all of our Gothar, for me, are at www.runestone.org. If you're my friend here on Facebook, I'd love to answer anything that way. But when I talk about this being an AFA family, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. You guys are all very important to me. And if you guys do ever have questions or concerns or anything that you want to talk to any member of AFA leadership about, reach out. If for some reason something gets lost in the mail and people don't talk to you, reach out to me personally, and I promise I will get back to you. And I promise I'll reach out and see where something got missed, and we'll get you situated. All right. We absolutely do have so many awesome people in the AFA, and that is a really good problem to have. We've got fantastic people. Our AFA family is the best around. I'm not sure if you don't know this, but we have our first Hof in California. Odenshof is in Brownsville, California, about an hour out of Sacramento. If you're in the area, if it's something that you want to do, please reach out to one of our folk builders. Reach out to me. We'd love to get you out to see Odenshof. Yeah, that is where our first Hof, the first Hof, the Asatru Folk Assembly, and as far as I know, the first Hof of its kind to our gods in Vinland is in Brownsville, California. So there you go. Roan, there is not a Hof in Oklahoma right now. If you'd like to see one happen there, I would urge you to get in touch with your folk builder for the area, Melissa Mills, and we can start seeing about building a thriving community there. When we have the people there, we would love to have a Hof in Oklahoma and in your area. And I could see something like that happening absolutely within the next 25 years, like Daniel asked about earlier. Mary says that her Facebook is stalled and there's a little circle going around endlessly. I'm not sure if everybody else is having that kind of problem. Hope not. I hope people are able to hear me and I'm not just talking to myself. But I think so. I think some of your others, the others here were coming through really good. Trying to look and see if anything popped in on my phone, because maybe that's a little bit different than on here on the computer. Mandy, that doesn't count because you guys are downstairs. You guys probably hear me bellowing throughout the house. Um, all right. Well, I'm trying to go through and see if there's any last things or any last questions folks have or things they want me to comment on. I got a few more minutes here if you guys have anything. If not, we can call it good and I'll talk to you all next month. But like I say, I want to give everybody an opportunity. If you have anything you want to say, anything you want to talk about, please do. Um, this is really a special time we get together, and like I said, it's one of my favorite things to do all month. So, all right. Well, I think we got Mary's technical issue figured out, and that's good. Well, I appreciate you guys all very, very much for joining this evening and coming in with your questions. I think we've talked about some really important things tonight. I appreciate everybody who has questions and the courage to reach out and ask them. As so many have said tonight, we have got great people. You guys are fantastic, and we've got really, really good things ahead here in 2020. It is amazing to be celebrating 25 years of the Asatru Folk Assembly with you fine folks. So I appreciate you guys joining me tonight. We'll try to do this again. I haven't looked at the calendar, but be looking about March 1st. And like I said, if you guys can make it out to Ostara in the South, it's going on the weekend of the 13th of March. So if you can make it to the Carolinas for that, we would love to see you there. It's going to be a fantastic weekend with amazing people from all across, certainly the United States. It's going to be a fantastic deal. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to call it a night. Thank you guys again. Hail the gods, hail the folk, hail the AFA.